Again, it's another economic constraint here. Something that has to be dealt with in order to get from the home to the world. The current plans are just not enough. There's no guarantee of fast uploads. Okay, so much for, blogging, sharing photos, sharing videos, video conferencing, all that sort of stuff. There are bottlenecks across the Pacific that are limiting our access to the world. Okay? If those still existed, they're the things that give us a unique structure in this country where our internet connections have monthly download limits. People around the world haven't heard of these things. Okay? It's news to them. But we have it here, and that's because of the costs associated with accessing the rest of the world. Keep those in place and upgrade the connections to what people were talking about. You're going to be done with your monthly allocation in a few seconds. Okay? But maybe a few hours. A few hours of video downloads. End of story. That's just not enough. Fourth, is the price going to be right? Okay? If we're talking $80 to $100 a month, that is going to be out of the price range of a lot of Australians. What are we spending money for if we're not going to have that sort of access? For public money in particular. If we do that, it's just a subsidy for the rich. And finally, do people have the right computing technology to benefit? So in order to actually, you might have to pay them out per month, but you'll have to invest several $1,000s in the right stuff. So the reality is, we spend billions of dollars, public, private, jointly money, and what do we get? We don't get e-health, because that's going to require fast uploads, a two-way connection, okay, to be able to access the graphic intensity to be able to do that. We don't get e-education for the same reason. Video conferencing is but a dream. What are we left with? Video downloads we'll be able to do. It'll be much quicker. And of course, games we'll be able to play as well. The two things, by the way, that those countries that were at the leading edge, that's what they're using the internet for. But the question for you is this a good use of public money? What we need are applications, global connectivity, subsidies where necessary, and regulation. Take, for instance, applications. Think about e-health. What would it take for a person to avoid having to go to a GP and avoid a GP waiting room? What would it take for a 5-minute consult to mean 5 minutes of a person's time rather than over an hour as they have to wait and travel? Take, for instance, a child, home, clearly got a sore ear, probably got an ear infection, taken down to the GP, late at night potentially, or what have you, and all they do is look in the child's ear and they can tell instantly whether there's an ear infection and instantly whether antibiotics are needed. You could do the same thing with a simple Japanese invention, USB connection, straight to a little camera, stick it in the ear, take a photo, send it to your doctor. Okay? Just upload the pictures, but there's a problem here. The GP, in order to make the diagnosis, has to be assured they're not going to be sort of sued for missing something. It has to be accepted. Our reimbursement for the GP has to take it into account. So the legal and the health insurance system all need development. These are issues that involve government. These are issues that something can be done about. Global connectivity. We need low-cost backhaul. This graph here shows you what the capacity is around the world. Australia, hanging by a thread. We've got just 2 providers. We have high interconnection rates charged to us by the US. And this is why we have download limits. You cannot think of a more definable public good than laying extra capacity on this particular bottleneck and negotiating the deals overseas to ensure that it's low cost. We're going to need subsidies. Regional areas are always going to be too expensive to get the latest communications infrastructure. If we want them to have it, we're going to have to subsidize connections. Doing that to some extent right now. This has worked in basic broadband. Current court squabbles aside, I'm confident it's going to work out. And subsidising connections is far better than having a universal service obligation. All that does is entrenches monopoly and entrenches cross-subsidies, distorts prices, creates lack of transparency. Far better to do what we're doing now, but we're going to need more of that. And we have to recognise that's where the bulk of the public money is going to have to go. Finally, we need regulation. Actually, we don't. You don't have to worry about regulation if we let Telstra do everything. They're very clear about that, and they're right. The problem with that is the cost is extremely large. Where we have competition, mobiles, CBDs of capital cities, where the quality is better, the prices are lower, competition works. So if there's going to be a diversity in providers, we need regulation. And where we need it is back at the exchange so that we can take that last mile and allow all sorts of people to deal with it. And not just leave it up to one, or in the G9, which just takes you to the node, another block of consortium. Regulate at the exchange and we can get what we need. And this is a problem that even has to be solved for public-private partnerships, public solutions, as well as private ones. Regulation cannot be avoided to get cost-effective solutions in broadband. So the priorities for the government, whomever it may be, is that you need public money for overseas backhaul. We need to ensure high-speed connections in regional areas. We need to find regulatory solutions that are tough and promote competition. And we need public money for innovations in the broadband applications so that Australians will have something to do when they get their high-speed connections. The message here, if you want e-education, you want e-health, you don't subsidise bricks to get a hospital or a school, nor should you subsidise pipes in order to get e-education and e-health. Subsidise the actual applications. Get that integrated. Now, in a report I wrote for CEDA last year, if you have all those elements, then actually I think that local competition can take care of itself. We don't have to think of the mindset of one national provider of broadband. Individual localities have individual needs. The best way to ensure that the market can take care of itself and that Australia isn't left behind is to think locally. Broadband is a local issue. Ultimately, good broadband attracts people to a location just as good garbage collection or good parks do. It has more in terms of that last mile in common, not surprisingly, with local public goods than with national defence. And we have to think that way. How do we enable local solutions? It could be local councils that assist in it. It could be others. We've got to recognise that specific technologies are needed. There are different demographics with different demand structures. There's the potential for social networks in areas, especially through schools and education, but also through local GPs. And this is where the most potential for competition is. We don't have to have a single provider. We have to have the opportunity for many to provide.